Hi, and welcome back to the VEX studio. My name is Jason McKenna, the Director of Global Educational Strategy for VEX Robotics, and thank you for joining me here today. And today I'm very excited because I have three really special guests I'm going to introduce to you. I have Harry Wood, Lauren Cash, and Brett Grayson here with me today. Welcome to the VEX studio. And if you want to take a moment just to go and introduce yourselves, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. Hello. Thank you, Jason. We are thrilled to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity to chat. My name is Harry Wood, and I work with NTID Regional STEM Center. The acronym is NRSC. We're based in Talladega, Alabama. And really, our goal is to promote STEM initiatives throughout the Southeast. Specifically, and we also support nationwide programs as well. So I was actually hired as a math and science instructor specialist, but now I am in robotics, and the rest is history.
Terrific. So Brett, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello there. My name is Brett Grayson, and I work with alongside Harry in the role of middle school level robotics IQ. So I do the middle school program and some math content as well. I was a math teacher for a few years, and now I am here in this role. So we're really happy to be here with you today.
So that's terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I remember the last in-person VEX Worlds that I attended. Dan Mance, the CEO of the REC Foundation, showed a video that highlighted deaf students competing in a VEX competition. It's the first time I'd ever seen that. Now, I was an educator for 20 years before I came working at VEX, and trying to expose as many students to STEM has always been a goal. But when I saw what was going on there, I was so impressed by that. So how did that get started? How were you able to bring robotics to deaf students?
Yes, really, this is just a great story, kind of how things got started. I was working one day, just a normal, everyday routine, um, and I got a call from the VEX team in Birmingham. That team had one student who is deaf, and they said, "Hey, Harry, how can we help that student with accessibility and all the challenges that they face with communication and such? So how do we make that more effective?" And so we talked about that for a while. And I asked, "Well, what are you doing?" And they told me about a local VEX competition. And so I went and got a feel of it, met the student, met the team. And then I met Leslie, one of the REC Foundation staff, Leslie Cruz, and we talked for a little bit, and kind of everything from there went up from there. So we reached out to a lot of different deaf programs all over, and we found one school in North Carolina, the residential deaf school there in North Carolina, and they had been doing that prior. So I had talked with them and learned a little bit about the robotics for those deaf individuals there. And the North Carolina coach, his name is Jeff, and he gave me some great advice on how to get the ball rolling. So we did have our first not all deaf teams, but first most deaf teams in Alabama. We trained them, and then they went back to their school and set up this robotics team. So our first deaf team was the North Carolina School for the Deaf, and from there it's expanded. And they have called and haven't stopped yet. So the calls keep coming, and we keep making it happen.
No, that's great. That's terrific to hear. That's just wonderful. So equity and access. These are two things that you hear about in STEM education. You hear it in all different types of education right now because of what's happened with the last 2 years, with everything that's happened with schools shutting down as a result of COVID. In thinking about equity and access in STEM, what does that mean to you for your students, for the deaf students?
Oh, it's very, very critical for the deaf community. It's very important. You mentioned COVID as that impacted many schools as they kind of shut down and such, and they switched to virtual options. And we were fine, except with the virtual option, it's audio only. There's not really a camera option. So finally, Zoom became an option and very popular indeed. Um, but it was definitely a struggle because of technology access and language access and computer access. I mean, go home, maybe the parents go to work and the student doesn't know how to, uh, maneuver this computer and such. So, language and accessibility, it's so important. There are so many different ways on Zoom, and with the Hearing Classroom, they virtually they sit there and listen to the teacher, which is fine. But deaf kids can't do that, obviously, because they use sign language as their mode of communication. Um, and at that time they may not have that equipment. So accessibility and equality are very, very huge. It's a big struggle for many deaf programs all over. Brett, do you want to add anything else? Yeah, I think that covers it. But just to piggyback, it's very important. Um, of course, equality and um, uh, language, but to adapt, that's something that we've had to do. And it's so funny because they hired me for this job in 3 months before COVID hit. So that in those 2 or 3 months, we were in person, everything was great. And then COVID hit, and I just had to adapt to provide those opportunities online and through Zoom. Um, but and we have to develop resources for those schools to watch on their own time, give us feedback. Vex VR, we have to, kind of pick up and go from there. We've had to train a lot of different schools to improve their program and skills. And so equality in language is and access is very, very key for them to develop that um, program and to go from there. So adapting, that's just a big word here in the recent years. And Harry's saying yes, VR, Vex VR, when they sent that out, it was just a huge benefit for the deaf community to be able to teach through video, and then students do themselves through the actions on the VR program. So some of them are able to do are able to access maybe a computer or a camera at home, so we're able to provide the internet and the computer and whatnot for those students. And so many of those schools are very, very grateful that we were able to help. And I'm really impressed with the accessibility there that Vex VR has provided, and our tournament has worked hard to provide accessibility. Deaf in person, it means that it does not mean that all deaf are the same. There's many different hearing levels. There's a variety of hearing levels. Some people sign strong and have ASL skills. Some people speak. Some people don't have either. Some people listen. So there's a variety, and we have to make sure that all of the students have that accessibility. So we're working hard to make that possible with in-person tournaments and now with virtual tournaments as well. So it's not easy, no. We have a team here, that can do that, work together, make it happen. But I'm just wondering about those many teachers who are alone in their work that depend on others to help them maybe not get that accessibility. So it made a huge impact, definitely.
Well, thank you for the kind words about VexCode VR. I'll share that with our team here because that's honestly an application I never thought of. The curriculum videos do have the closed captioning, and obviously it's all student self-facing, so they can go on and they can follow it. So I'm very happy to hear that you're able to apply it as you're able to do that. So kind of coming off of that, then the success stories that you've had, with your students as they've gone through the program. Soon you'll have students, if not already, going from Brett to Harry as they go from IQ to V5 and all that they've learned from having that experience. So if you want to share some of the success stories that you've had with your students with this program.
Um, yeah, okay. So really, I mean, there's a plethora of stories that I could give you of these success stories. But for me, the recent tournament, I really had chill bumps. The virtual tournament, and we had a team. We had 21 different teams from all over the country, and robotics. They had a variety of ideas. And during the match, I noticed one, two, maybe even three teams. One specifically, that team had the robot set and had its arms projecting from the sides, and they were going about. They hit one of the arms, fell off. They hit something, one of the arms fell off, and you can tell they were struggling throughout the match. And then when the match was over, the scorekeeper, told the students what their score was. You could tell with their body language, they weren't happy. They were just had a good result. They accepted the score, but they looked very sad, gave a thumbs up. And then the next time that team showed up for their match, the robot was already fixed, back to normal, ready to go. And it just really impressed me. I was so proud of that team for their overcoming that situation. They did not give up. So that was a very just heartwarming moment for me. We've had so many schools over the years involved, and the first year was so frustrating. And that team, it was their first year, and they didn't give up. They were able to continue on and be successful there. Brett, do you have anything to add? So I'm new to this program, but for the first 1 or 2 years, but I had a story that Harry shared with me, and I was able to share with other people. There was one student from the very first tournament, and my understanding was that student prior had a background of not having access to language. They were from a different country. They moved here to America later, at a later age. So they didn't have English. They didn't have ASL. And through their childhood. So they arrived to America with no language, very little ability to communicate, period. They didn't sign, didn't have the auditory learning. And they were able to pick up through the program a little bit of science. So they joined the robotics team and got going. And that student picked up language. It was amazing. They graduated and had effective communication skills. I mean, now for the rest of their life. But when they started that school, very minimal language. They graduated and they're able to carry on a full conversation in ASL. So that's something that's really inspiring. Just by being involved in the robotics competition, they were able to pick up that language. So we know the program requires communication, period. So having those ideas and those goals, you've got to share with each other and accommodate for each other. Have your responsibility, have my responsibility. And there's so many things that you have to agree on. So that student was able to pick up language during that time. And that story I always love to share about the program. That's something that I share to many, many people, how inspiring that really was and how the program impacted them. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. That really is terrific to hear, and it really, puts in perspective what it is that we're trying to do here when we talk about, creating the future problem solvers of tomorrow. That's great to hear, and I'm sure there will be teachers watching this video that will hopefully be inspired by what they are seeing here. I taught students that were deaf in my classroom, or if you're a parent that's watching this video and you're the parent of a son or a daughter that might happen to be deaf, and they hear this and they become inspired by it, but there's no robotics team local to them, or there is a robotics team, but there's no students on the team that are deaf, how would you recommend for them to get started? If they want to see a robotics team started in their school that accommodates students that happen to be deaf, or if they want to see more of students accommodated on the team that happen to be deaf, what advice would you give to parents or teachers that want to see this get started?
Oftentimes, deaf students that have hearing parents will ask their individuals in their local area, hey, can we be involved? Also, there may be like word of mouth, spreading. The deaf community has a huge word of mouth and a huge influence. And I'm pretty sure by now many of those deaf students know someone who is already involved. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they hadn't heard of it yet. I would be surprised if they hadn't heard of it yet. But we have www.aidb.org/NRSC. And we have information there that they can go to and look, and they can get our contact information, and they can contact me or Brett, and we'll be able to provide grant funding to set up the team at no cost for them. It can be done in the school, or even like an after school program, a club. It can be done at home. It can be done through a private group, whatever the case may be. There's so many different options, and there's so many different students who are the only deaf in their school. Say they're going to a mainstream public school and they're the only deaf student there in their school. So for our program, we can have 50% deaf, 50% hearing if they want to accommodate that way. So that the hearing people, the hearing students will be able to learn the ASL and be able to communicate with that student. So those are many, many different goals about the big opportunities we have for them to pick up and have effective communication within their realm and not have those barriers.
I don't know, Brett, have anything else you want to add to that?
Harry said it all, just that short answer. Contact us. We would love to get something started.
Terrific. That's terrific. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join me here today. I can't really impress upon you just how inspiring I find this to be. I've told teachers for the last 2 years what they've done with COVID is simply remarkable. And what you've done is more than remarkable. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. I appreciate everything that you're going to continue to do. And I look forward to working with you in the future so that we can bring what you're doing to more students around the country and around the world. So thank you very much for joining us here today in the VEX studio. Thank you again, Harry, Lauren, and Brett, and we will talk to everybody soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Enjoyed our time.